Hello, my wonderful viewers. You are welcome again to another edition of ICT for Beginner Lessons. My name is Ernest Atto Bentel. Viewers, last week we looked at forms of personal computers. And today we are going to continue with the same topic on forms of personal computers. As I said, that topic for today is still on forms of personal computers. But before we look at other forms, let's mark the homework or the assignment you were given the other time. The last lesson was on desktop computers as a form of personal computer. And in assignment, we said state 4 basic parts that make up a desktop computer. State the 4 basic parts that make up a desktop computer. And when you talk about desktop computer, you need a system unit, monitor, keyboard, and then mouse. So these 4 components make up a desktop computer. 2. Mention any 2 advantages of desktop computer. Mention any 2 advantages of desktop computer. And one, you said desktop computers are generally less expensive. Desktop computers are generally less expensive as compared to other forms of personal computers. 2. Desktop computers are easier and less expensive to upgrade. Easier and less expensive to upgrade. So if you want to upgrade some of the parts to higher components, it is easy than other forms of personal computers. And then 3, give any 2 disadvantages of desktop computer. Give any 2 disadvantages of desktop computer. And 1, it is not convenient to carry it around. As I say, if you have a desktop and you had to move it up and down to school or work every time, you see how inconvenient that will be. And 2, it consumes more electricity, that is power. It consumes more power because the system unit has its own power cable, the monitor has its own power cable, and both draw power from your mains. So it consumes more power as compared to other forms of personal computers. I believe you all had the answers to these questions correct. Now let's move on to today's topic, still on forms of personal computers. At the end of the lesson, you'll be able to describe 3 examples of personal stationary computers. So if you walk through the lesson with me, at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to describe 3 examples of personal stationary computers. Now let's refresh our minds on what personal computers are. In the previous lesson, we said these are computers designed for use by one person at a time. Personal computers, also known as PCs, are computers designed for use by just one person at a time. So as we discussed in the previous lesson, if I'm using the computer to type a document, another person cannot use the same computer to watch movie, play games, or do any forms of graphic designs. So remember that when we talk about personal computers or PCs, we are saying these are computers designed for use by one person at a time. Now let's go over the forms again. Personal computers take different forms based on end user usage. Personal computers take different forms based on end user usage. And we said that some of these forms are: 1, stationary computers. The second form of personal computers are mobile computers. Then we have mobile devices. Then we have embedded devices. In the previous lesson, we started with stationary computers and we talked about desktop as the first example we talked about desktop. Today, we are still going to talk about stationary computers as one of the forms of personal computers. And viewers, we said that when we talk about stationary computers, they are computers that cannot be moved from one place to another. We are not saying it is fixed forever, but it is inconvenient to be moving it around. So normally it is used positioned at a particular place. It can be moved though, but it becomes inconvenient when you have to move it from one place to another. So due to that, it is fixed at one place so that you can comfortably use that form of computer. And in the previous lesson, we talked about desktop computer as the first example. Today we are going to look at other forms of stationary computers. The first we'll talk about is workstation. Workstation. So you see on your screen what a workstation is. You see that it looks exactly the same as a desktop computer with system unit, monitor. But workstations are a bit different. Let's look at what workstation is. When you talk about workstation, this is a computer usually more powerful than a normal desktop PC. So the PC here means personal computer. This is a computer usually more powerful than a normal desktop PC. So if you look at this workstation here, we are saying it is more powerful than the normal desktop that we know, and it is often dedicated to a specific task, such as graphics. So when we talk about graphics, we are talking about graphic designs. So it looks just the same as a desktop computer, but it is more powerful than a desktop computer. And normally workstations use more than one monitor. Workstations use more than one monitor. So they are more powerful than the normal desktop computers that we talked about the last time. Workstations are most often used for tasks like video editing. So we normally use workstations for video editing, for three-dimensional graphics, that is what we call 3D, three-dimensional graphics, engineering design, and then data science visualization. When we talk about data science visualization, we are talking about graphs, we are talking about images, we are talking about animation, and so on. When we talk about engineering designs, we are talking about building plans and the rest. So we are saying workstations are used for these kinds of tasks, for video editing, for 3D graphics, for engineering design, and then data science visualization. So if a workstation is used for all these tasks, then it means that their graphics processing cards are very important. So with workstations, their graphics processing cards are very important because they process large volumes of graphics. When we talk about graphics, we are talking about images, we are talking about motion pictures, we are talking about graphs, and so on. So workstations are used for these tasks. So remember that workstations are more powerful than the normal desktops that we know. Also, these workstations can be connected to other computers in the organization. These workstations can be connected to other computers in the organization. So it can be used as a server. So as you see it here, it can be used as a server. And when we talk about a server, we are talking about a main system that other systems can tap information from on a network. So the primary purpose of this is data sharing through the business network environment. So because workstations are very powerful, they can be used as servers that through which data can be shared in a business network environment. So remember that workstations are also desktop computers, but these workstations are more powerful than the normal desktop computers that we know. they are powerful than the normal desktop computers that we know. So another example of a stationary personal computers is the workstation, and it looks exactly the same as the system unit, the monitor that we identified when we're talking about desktop computers. Just that when we talk about workstations, they are more powerful than the normal desktop computers that we know. You are going through all this so that anytime you want to purchase any form of personal computers, based on what you want to use the computer for, you'll be able to make the right choice. So if I'm a graphic designer, if I'm a building plan designer, and then I want to buy a personal computer, then a workstation is more appropriate to use. A workstation is more appropriate due to its graphics card that it comes with. So apart from desktop computers, another stationary computer is known as the workstation. It can either be used for intense graphic works, or it can be used as a server so that data can be shared through the workstation to other computers in the business network environment. Good. Now let's look at another form of stationary computer. As we said, stationary computers are computers that cannot be moved from one place to another. It cannot be moved from one place to another because movement of these machines become inconvenient. So due to that, we normally position them at a specific place so that it will be easier and more comfortable to use. And another example is the information kiosk. And what you see on your screen here is what we call the information kiosk. I believe you have come across these forms of computers before. Now let's look at what really information kiosks are. When you talk about information kiosk, this is a computer-like device designed to provide certain information or services to people in public places. So this is a computer-like device designed to provide certain information or services to people in public places. And this is what it looks like. We have different designs and it comes in different forms, but this is what an information kiosk looks like. So they normally put it at a place that provides information or services to people in especially public places. Let's look at how these computers really looks like. So if you look at the image on your screen, this is an example of an information kiosk. And every information kiosk, this is the one you see here represent the body framework. That's the body of this computer. The two shows you where the central processing unit of this type of computer is located. So this is where the central processing unit is located. And then we also have the display. This is where you have the display. And display is the screen that helps you to communicate with this kind of computer. And then the fourth one, we call it peripherals. When we talk about peripherals, other devices that we connect to the system unit that help make the use of that computer very easy and comfortable. So you have peripherals like a keypad. You can also have a printer as a peripheral attached to this information kiosk. I believe by looking at this image, something comes into your mind. You have seen this kind of computer before around. Let's look at more features of information kiosk. By their shape and size, we have freestanding, we have wall-mounted, and then we have tablet. So when we talk about information kiosk as an example of a stationary computer or a stationary personal computer, we have, by their shape and size, we have freestanding, we have wall-mounted, then we have tablet. Let's look at the images of these examples. So when we talk about freestanding, it means that this kind of computer can freely stand on its own. It is not attached to anything. So that's the freestanding one. It can stand on its own and then operate. When you talk about the wall mounted, like the ATM, it is fixed on a wall. And then the tablet one is hung like this on the stand. So these are the various kinds of information kiosk that we have. If you talk about ATM, some ATMs come as freestanding, especially those ATMs that are located at busy places. For example, the mall, marketplaces, the hospitals. You see that some of them use the freestanding. Some also, when you go to the banks, for instance, they normally use the wall mounted. You see that the ATM is fixed on a wall. And most of the time when you go to the banking hall, you will see this example of kiosk computer also there. This is when you enter the banking hall, you just go to this tablet, you key in your contacts, and then it will bring out some numbers for you, and that is what the PA system of the bank will call as at when you enter the bank. So maybe if your the ticket that was generated by this is D401, at the banking hall you hear that D401 go to teller 4 or teller 5. So we normally see this inside the banking hall. You normally see this outside the banking hall, and you normally see this kind of computer at busy places. These are all examples of information kiosk. You have come across it before, you have been using them, but maybe you may not know you are using a kind of a personal computer. And as we say personal computer, you will agree with me that two people cannot use ATM at the same time, one after the other. That is why we call them personal computers. It is used one after the other. I cannot go to an ATM where I'll be using this to check my statement or print my statement, whilst another person will be using this to cash out money. So these are examples or some of the features that you find with information kiosk. You have freestanding, that comes standing alone without being fixed to anything, and then you have the wall mounted, and we have the tablet type. So we looked at, by shape and size, the forms that we have. Now by location, information kiosk can be used outdoor or indoor. That means that it can be used inside a building or outside a building. So if you look at this information kiosk, this is found inside a restaurant. So this is found inside a restaurant, and you see order here. So when you enter the restaurant, you just approach or go near the information kiosk, and then you make your order. So if you look at the back of this, you see that you have another one here, you have another one here. So you can just go there, order your food, and then specify the table number you are sitting, and then your food will be served. And at the end of the day, it will also bring out a receipt or invoice for you for the cost of what you ordered. So this information kiosk can be used indoor. As you see an example here, this is an example of a restaurant. You see a man here taking a sip of a drink. So this is used indoors. The same way you can have another one used outdoor, like this GCB ATM you see here. This is used outdoor, just like the other banking ATMs that we know. So when you talk about information kiosk, some can be used inside or outside a building. The next feature is the interactivity. When you talk about interactivity, how you converse or how you are able to ask questions, and then the machine will also answer. You will also put in a request and the machine will also answer. That is what we mean by interactivity. And by interactivity, some of these information kiosks can be interactive, some can be non-interactive. So let's look at an example. This is an ATM, and when we talk about interactivity, it will ask you select an amount. You select an amount, enter your PIN, and then you see the hand entering the PIN. Select withdraw. This is what we mean by interactivity. There is a request and you perform that demands to that request, and then by so doing you'll be able to get whatever you want the machine to do for you. So this is what we talk about interactivity. There's a request and then you perform the demands for that request, and then through that whatever you want will be given out. But when we talk about non-interactivity, it means that you can only watch. You cannot interact. You cannot press anything, or the machine cannot ask you to do something for you to also reply. And an example is the digital signage. You normally see these big screens outside, and they are normally used for providing information to customers or people around, or for adverts. And that is what we call the digital signage. These days you see some of these things around us, especially at busy places. So an information kiosk can be interactive like the ATM, or it can also be non-interactive like the digital signage. So this is also an example of a stationary personal computer. And viewers, you believe that these computers cannot be moved from one place to another. It is fixed at a particular place so that its usage will be more comfortable to use. Let's look at where these information kiosks are used. They are normally used at fast food restaurants, as we saw when we saw one indoors. They are also used in public transport. Sometimes you go to some transport sections and then you approach an interactive information kiosk. You key in your destination and then it will bring you a ticket with the price of the fare on it. It is also used at the banking arena like the ATM. You also see them at municipalities, that is district assemblies and other ministries and other government agencies, where these information kiosks are there to provide information to people around. They are also found at the hospitals. The hospitality industry, that is the hotels and the rest. So when we talk about hospitality, we are talking about the hotels and the rest, where you can book an order for a room or any other services. And the healthcare is the hospitals. They are also used at the hospitals, as well as the retail joints in big supermarkets. So you see that we have these kinds, not only ATM. I think the most common one we find around are ATM, but they are also used at other places. When you go to football stadium, you can see some of these information kiosks also there, where these kiosks are responsible for selling tickets to people who want to come and then watch a match. So these are places where these kinds of computers are used. So remember that information kiosk is also an example of a stationary personal computer. Stationary personal computer. Good. Let's look at another one. TV video game console. TV video game console. So when you talk about this kind of personal stationary computer, it's a computer system specially made for playing computer games. We use it for playing computer games, and it is normally connected to our television or any other display for video and sound. So if this video game console is used with your television, you cannot be moving your television from one place to another. The television is fixed on a wall, and then you connect this video game console to it to enjoy playing your games. It cannot be moved from one place to another, because the movement brings about some kind of inconvenience. So a video game console purposely used with a television set is also an example of stationary personal computers. Game consoles today, like the Xbox, like the Nintendo, like the PlayStation, are all examples of computers. In our first lesson, we said that we are already into using computers, just that most of us did not know that we are already into using computers. Computers are not only the desktop or the laptop that you see. All these game consoles are also examples of computers. They also contain a hard drive. Every computer contains a storage media, and in this kind, the hard drive. And they also operate using operating system. They also operate using operating system. So viewers, game console, video game console, normally used with our television set, are also examples of stationary personal computers. Computers that cannot be moved from one place to another. The next example is the fuel dispenser. Fuel dispenser. Fuel dispenser is also an example of a computer, and it comes under stationary personal computers. Stationary personal computers. As we said, these kind of computers, that is the stationary ones, cannot be moved from one place to another, and also it cannot be used by more than one person at a time. So when we take a fuel dispenser is a machine at a filling station that is used to pump gas oil. That's what we call diesel. It is used to pump petrol, also called a gasoline. It is used to pump kerosene or any other type of fuel. These days, when you go to the gas filling stations, they also use fuel dispensers, and fuel dispensers are also examples of computers, and they come under stationary personal computers. Stationary personal computer. I don't believe if any car gets to the filling station, you will see one fuel dispenser being used to pump fuel for about 5 to 10 cars. No. The fuel dispenser serves one person at a time. Sometimes you may have a fuel dispenser with a diesel or petrol outlet, but they serve one person at a time. And a fuel dispenser is also an example of a computer, and it comes under stationary personal computers because it becomes inconvenient moving it from one place to another. So when there's a shortage of fuel, you cannot say that, oh, I have fuel here, so I'm moving my fuel dispenser with the tanks to another filling station where there's a high demand of fuel. It is fixed at one place, and moving it becomes impossible or inconvenient. So the fuel dispenser is also an example of a computer used as the filling station, and we use it to pump types of fuel used by vehicles. Since it uses both digital and then the analog, it is also known as the hybrid. Fuel dispensers uses both digital and analog signals. When we were treating classification of computers by type, or by the technology used to process data, we talked about analog, we talked about digital, and then we talked about hybrid. And we said that hybrid machines combine both analog and digital signals. And fuel dispensers is an example of a hybrid computer, because when you talk about analog, it has to have contact with an object, and that object of contact is the fuel passing through the machine. So a fuel dispenser is also a computer and a stationary computer as well. And as we said, it's a stationary computer because it cannot be moved from one place to another. It cannot be moved from one place to another. Good viewers, we are gradually coming to the end of this lesson, and today we looked at more examples of stationary personal computers. Computers that cannot be moved easily from one place to another. We first looked at Workstation. We said they are example of a desktop computer, but they are more powerful than a desktop computer. They are normally used for graphic designs, and it can also be used as a server where other computers can be connected to it so that they can share data with this kind of computer. We also talked about kiosk computer, normally fixed to provide services to people at public places. We also looked at game consoles that are used with television sets. And lastly, we looked at fuel dispensers. So viewers, when we talk about stationary personal computers, we have many forms of personal computers. And when we talk about stationary, we are talking about kind of computers that cannot be moved from one place to another. Or it can be moved though, but movement becomes inconvenient for the user. And last time we looked at desktop. Today we looked at Workstation as the number 2. We looked at information kiosk. We looked at game console, and we looked at fuel dispenser. So these are examples of personal computers that cannot be moved from one place to another. And also remember that these kinds of computers are used by one person at a time. Now viewers, before we end the lesson, let's test ourselves on forms of microcomputers, or as I said, microcomputers are also known as personal computers. 1. A desktop computer which is usually more powerful than a normal PC is called a desktop computer which is usually more powerful than a normal PC is called, we have kiosk, we have fuel dispenser, we have Workstation. Kiosk, fuel dispenser, and then Workstation. Good. The answer is Workstation. So when we talk about Workstation, we are talking about a form of a desktop computer more powerful than the normal desktop that we know. 2. A computer device designed to provide certain information or services to people in public places is called a computer device designed to provide certain information or services to people in public places is called, we have kiosk, we have Workstation, we have desktop. Kiosk, very good. The answer is kiosk. So we normally use kiosk to provide certain information or services to people in public places. It can be interactive or it can be like a digital signage providing only information. 3. Automated teller machine ATM is an example of automated teller machine ATM is an example of we have fuel dispenser, we have kiosk, we have workstation. Kiosk, very good. The answer is kiosk. So ATM is an example of a kiosk computer. 4. A computer system specially made for playing video games is called a computer system specially made for playing video games is called we have kiosk, we have game console, we have workstation. Good. The answer is game console. So a game console is specially made for playing video games. And then 5. Which of the following computers need high graphic processing cards? Which of the following computers need high graphic processing cards? You have kiosk, you have workstation, you have fuel dispenser. Good, the answer is workstation. So workstation deals with volumes of graphic works, and due to that, their graphics card must be high. Must be high. Viewers, you have all done well. You have all done well. And before we leave, let's take this assignment down. 1. State any 3 examples of stationary personal computers. State any 3 examples of stationary personal computers. 2. State 2 uses of a fuel dispenser. State 2 uses of a fuel dispenser. And then 3. Give any 2 uses of a workstation. Give any 2 uses of a workstation. So viewers, this is an assignment for you. I'll give you some few minutes to put this assignment down. Hello viewers, you are welcome back. I believe we are all able to put the assignment down. Today we looked at forms of personal computers, specifically stationary computers. And we talked about 4 examples added to what we did last week, making it 5. We have gradually come to the end of the lesson on stationary personal computers. Make sure you revise and then learn hard. Until we meet again next time. This is your ICT instructor, Ernest Ato Bento. Bye bye.